Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Small Business Bootcamp. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and your host for today's session. As we like to do, we like to have everybody post up in the chat where you are tuning in from. We like to see where all of our attendees are from throughout Arizona and oftentimes other states, and sometimes even other countries. So please post in the chat where you're tuning in from. Via Scottsdale, Mesa, Chandler, Mason, Tucson, Phoenix, Laveen, STV. I'm not sure where STV is. But Weston, thank you for joining us. Flagstaff. Santan Valley, got it. Learn a new acronym today. Queen Creek. Again, if you just joined, please post up in the chat where you're tuning in from. Got Peoria, Tucson, Atlanta. All right, multi-state today. Page, Phoenix. All right, well, we're going to jump in and get going here. We appreciate everybody posting in the chat. Just a side note with the chat, we like to use the chat and the Q&A boxes separately. So we're going to have some interaction in the chat. But when you have questions, please post them in the Q&A that you find at the bottom of your screen. It helps us to make sure we don't miss any of the good questions we know you'll have in today's session. So for those that are new to the Small Business Bootcamp, we like to start by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these webinars without them, their time and their expertise. They willingly give back of their expertise to the small business community to help small business owners improve their businesses. So we're very appreciative of that. Another great thing about the bootcamp, for those that are new to it, is it's not just our webinar that we do every Tuesday morning, but we also do workshops, both live and virtual. We do lunch and learns and other events to help bring information to small businesses, to help small business owners prepare, plan, and grow their business. One of the great results of the bootcamp is our content library. So we record all of our webinars and we post those in our content library, usually within a day of the webinar. And so we have well over 350 recorded webinars in our content library. And you can see on your screen there, there's some little check boxes you can check. There's 7 different categories that we sort them by to help make it a little bit easier to find sessions related to the topics you're looking for as you search through the content library. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly and I will guide you to some of those sessions that might fit your needs. We're glad to help with that. But the content library is a great resource. There's no cost to access it. You just click on the video and it'll also give you the slide deck, a PDF of the slide decks that the presenters use to help you get that material. The ACA also has a number of other programs to help support small businesses. You can find those at azcommerce.com/programs. We've got these 6 plus more on our website that you can find and access to help support your business growth. One of the programs we like to talk about is called the Small Business Checklist. This is an online interactive tool or resource that helps small businesses, entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business or expand your business to identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance requirements at the local, state, and federal levels. It'll help you with simple things as identifying if you need a business license for the community you're going to be working in, or even if you're going to have some compliance requirements, for example, with ADEQ, the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. It will give you information based on city, industry, profession, and more. There's a ton of information in the checklist, and you can scan that QR code. It'll take you to it. We also have our virtual assistant on there, Sally. Sally is there to help you. There's information tree you can follow along, or if you're working with Sally, there's an option to ask a question. Feel free to give that a try out. That question option is a new generative AI version that we are playing with and testing to make sure Sally's giving the appropriate answers. But feel free to try that. And then if you utilize Sally, please provide feedback. We are always looking to help Sally be more effective and efficient in the way that the chatbot responds, our virtual assistant responds. So great tool there to help small business owners throughout the state. Some of the things we like to do as we kick this off is to share some business updates. So on this Wednesday, so tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. is an SBIR workshop, a Small Business Innovative Research Grant workshop. So if you have an innovative research type idea or business, that might be something to look at. Also coming up on September 12th is the Phoenix Business Journal Small Business Awards. And then on September 20th, or September 12th is the Phoenix Business Journal Small Business Awards, and September 20th is the SCORE Women's Business Center and ACA Women's Business Summit. It's an all-day event. It'll be located here at the ACA, but you do have to go in and register online. There is a slight fee for that as well. So with that, our upcoming sessions, we just like to share these real quick so you can see what we've got planning. You'll notice there's a couple coming up in September, highlighting the holiday season. We want to get an early jump on that for those businesses that can leverage the holiday season for additional sales or marketing. We want to give you the time to be able to adjust for that and make the most out of it. So that's why you're seeing those in September. You'll also notice that there's next week, we will not have a webinar because of Labor Day holiday. We like to take the Tuesday after those major Monday holidays off to give people time to get back in the swing of things. So we've got a great upcoming sessions, but we're all here for today's session. So we're going to jump right in. We've got today's presenter is Mitchell Bolnick. We're glad to have him with us. You'll see in some of the slides, he's written a few books. He's been the director of operations, got a ton of skills in the small business world, and we're excited to have him talk to us about his expertise and share some information with you to help your businesses run better. So again, at the bottom of your screen, you'll find the Q&A. When you have questions, type those in there. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna turn it over to Mitchell for his presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I'm assuming you see my screen.
Yes, looks good.
Okay, thank you. So you heard a little bit about me. My name's Mitch Bolnick. I am a consultant, I am a mentor, and I am a judge in the AIC with the ACA. I've mentored at ASU in the past with startups and small businesses. I own my own small business that I ran for 10 years. And since I sold that in 2013, I've been consulting, and my wife and I invested in a couple small businesses, which they're all sold now. We don't have any current business investments at this point in time. But I started off managing a restaurant in downtown Chicago for Holiday Inn. I hated it, went and got my MBA in finance and went to work for a large international telephone company called GTE. They're now largely Verizon. And was a financial analyst, worked my way up into management. And then I was asked to join a group that was a cost center, but the goal was to turn it into a profit center. And we turned that around. And when the business got bought, we were a $100 million business unit. We had 780 people running around the country installing central office telephone equipment. And my job was all the finance, contracts, business operations. I got involved with ISO certification, that's the international standards. I was involved with OSHA, making sure we complied with OSHA. And I learned a whole lot. And then we got bought by a company called Lucent Technologies, and they laid almost everybody off. And that was in 2004. And I was asked to move to New Jersey. I didn't want to, so I got laid off. And that's when I started my journey of small business ownership, did a whole bunch of business studies and cases, and ended up buying a defunct low voltage electrical company that was doing mostly audio visual and some security systems. The owner was trying to sell it. There were 3 employees. They did under $100,000 their last year. And we turned it around into 24 employees, and our best year was $3 million. So that was a lot of fun. But you know what I learned was that with all my MBA and working for this huge, large company, $100 million company, that I was not prepared at all to run a small business. And I was pretty arrogant. I thought I was. But you know, when you're in a large business and you need to do something and you go, oh, it's going to cost $25,000, it's usually not a big deal. But when you own a small business and somebody wants to spend $250, it could be a big deal. And what I'm here to tell you is entrepreneurship's a lot of chaos. And I'm here to show you one way to control that chaos. It's like riding a whole bunch of roller coasters. And you hop on, some are going up, some are going down, some are mellow, some are scary, some are fun, and you just keep hopping on roller coasters. I'm going to give you a way to jump off of some of those roller coasters and to manage a lot of those roller coasters in this seminar, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So Robert mentioned I wrote a couple books. One is Mitch's business plan, and another one is Mitch's about business development. I'm here to talk to you about a book that I didn't write. It's a guy named Jeffrey Gitomer, and it's called Customer Satisfaction is Worthless, Customer Loyalty is Priceless. He's a marketing guru. I read into this and kind of developed my own little thing, but think about it. Loyalty is pretty strong. And if you could generate loyal customers, as I'm going to explain, you have got a much better business than people who just come in and are satisfied. When was the last time you went into a place and were satisfied? Think about that last time. Are you going to go back to that place? You might. You were satisfied. But if somebody else comes along and says, hey, this might be better, you're probably going to go check that out. Whereas if you had such a great experience that it's just on your forefront, you're going to go back there. And that's what this is all about. So let's go on. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not going here. So let me talk a little bit about some stories about loyalty. Hopefully those of you in the Valley now know about Portillo's. It's from Chicago, which is my hometown. And I actually, when I lived in Chicago and worked for that international company, I was about a block away from the second Portillo's that ever opened. And I was there for 5 years, and I can't count on my hands and legs and all your hands and legs how many times I ate there. But it's because they were friendly, they had really good food, they were consistent, and I became very, very loyal. But how loyal? Well, the day they opened up here in Arizona, my wife and I were in line, in a long line, waiting to go to Portillo's. And we have since told everybody in the Valley, go to Portillo's. We go there often. They opened one up by me in Peoria, which was dangerous. But I'm a very loyal Portillo's fan, as you can tell. And it's because they did a lot of the things I'm going to talk about. McDonald's. I don't know why this isn't clicking through. I'm sorry. I'll do it this way. McDonald's is another interesting story. So I'm not a big McDonald's fan anymore, so I'm not loyal to them. But many of you may realize that McDonald's isn't the food company. They call themselves a real estate company. They're the largest real estate owner in the country. And when I was a kid, there were very few options when you were driving on a highway to eat. And McDonald's in the late 60s, maybe early 70s, opened up a bunch of McDonald's along the interstate freeways and started advertising that they had clean bathrooms. And, you know, advertising and telling people that you have something is one thing, but they ensured they had clean bathrooms. They had processes for cleaning bathrooms. The ones in big cities near me, they made sure the bathrooms were clean. So people got to understand that McDonald's has clean bathrooms. And I'm telling you, once they started doing that, every time my family stopped on vacations, when we were on the highway, we went into McDonald's. And it was because my mom trusted they were going to have clean bathrooms for us. And then we always had something. We always talked my mom into buying some kind of Happy Meal or something. They didn't have Happy Meals back then. But McDonald's generated loyalty in a different way. And I just wanted to point that out. A third company I want to talk real quick about is Best Buy. Many of you may have experienced what I'm about to tell you, but Best Buy used to have draconian return policies. They didn't like you returning it. They often charged you for returning something, and they definitely didn't like warranty returns. And it made a lot of people, frankly, pissed off. And when the pandemic hit, right before the pandemic hit, the year before the pandemic hit, their gross sales for same stores year over year dropped, and it did that for several years in a row. And a lot of it was because they were just pissing people off. I'll give you a story. I'm from Chicago, so I apologize. I like to tell stories. My wife once bought me a phone. It was a desk phone, and it didn't work. And so she returned it to Best Buy. That's where she bought it. Sorry. And it didn't work. And they wanted to charge her a restocking fee. And she explained it doesn't work. It's not like I'm just returning it because he didn't like it, which you still shouldn't charge me for, but it didn't work. And the clerk insisted that he had to charge the fee. My wife got quite upset. And if you know my wife can get vocal when she gets upset. And she insisted on talking to a manager. She argued with the manager for a while in front of a whole bunch of people, by the way, in this Best Buy store. And finally, he gave in and didn't charge her a restocking fee, which is ridiculous. We have not shopped at Best Buy since that day. So my point is you could have loyal customers, and you could, if you don't have a right plan in place and processes and procedures and the right people, then you could lose that loyalty in a heartbeat. So what do I mean by a loyal customer? So this is definition. A loyal customer is someone who every time they are in the market for your product or service comes to you. So, hey, I love what Mitch did for me and I need some more consulting. I'm going to go to Mitch. Or I love my mechanic so much that I am going to go to him every single time I have any kind of problem with my vehicle. That's what you're trying to get someone to be. But that's not enough. To be loyal, you have to love the product or service so much that every time you hear of someone in the market for that product or service, you're going to recommend them. So think about that. I am now putting my own integrity on the line by telling people that you are worth using because you've made me a loyal customer. That's what this is all about. So let's go on. So I'm going to go through this real quick. Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow was a psychologist, and he hypothesized, and a lot of people, believe this, and to this day, this is used. But he believed that everybody wanted to get to a point at the top called self-actualization, where you're comfortable with yourself, you are comfortable with society, you're happy, whatever. But he also believed that if you didn't fulfill all these things below it, you'll never get to self-actualization as a person. And it starts with physiological needs like food and water. His hypothesis is, and I believe it's true, that if you don't have food and water, you're going to spend pretty much every minute of the day trying to figure out how you can eat and drink. And you're not going to care, for example, if you're even safe, whether you have any housing or a shelter. You're going to just be so focused on water and food that you're not even thinking of these other things. Now, once you have satisfy that and know that you can do that, next thing is you're going to want to make sure you're safe. And if you can't do that, you're not going to do things like look for friends or try and figure out your role in society. You're going to figure out how to make yourself safe first. So Maslow created this hierarchy, and he believed that people get stuck in certain areas of this and need to figure out how to get to the next level and or need help getting to the next level. Well, that's pretty much how I developed what I call Mitch's hierarchy of customer loyalty needs. And if you buy either one of my books, I actually got a chapter in there on this because I believe it's so important. To me, loyalty starts at the bottom of the hierarchy, trust, and you work your way up to the cherries up at the top. That's loyal customers. But it includes things like honesty, integrity, respect, knowing industry standards. Robert was just talking about some of that. Certifications, laws, and regulations. I'll explain why those are so important and how they fit in. Having what I call internal customer loyalty with your employees, vendors, and stakeholders is the next level in my hierarchy. And then what I call the icing on the cake, I'll get to that. And then the cherries. And the cherries are every business's goal. And let me take you through that. So as I said, loyalty starts with trust. Trust gets the people in the door. Somebody, your product is of such that somebody believes they either saw an advertisement or somebody might have told them that it is going to fulfill whatever need they have at this time and at a price that they're willing to pay. They're willing to take money out of their pocket and give it to you. They don't know anything about you. They're trusting that whoever told them or whatever it is going to get you what they need. So that gets them in the door. And it's the start of the whole loyalty journey. What's next in my hierarchy is honesty, integrity, and respect. Think about it. When you go into a business, you don't expect them to be dishonest. You expect everything they're telling you makes sense and is true. You believe they have integrity because you're already accepting that their product does what it says it does, or service does what it says it does, and you're expecting that to be true. And you expect them to respect you as a human being, as a client. And if you can't perform any of these things, you've got issues with your business. I mentioned standards and certifications. You have to know what the standards are for your business, and you have to know what certifications are required. It goes well beyond business license for many business. If you're a beautician in the state, you need a certification and a license. So you need to understand those, but not only just understand them, you need to make sure that you're adhering to them and that you have the certifications and that you know when they expire and that you're renewing them. As a business, I expect that you're meeting, as a customer, I expect that you're meeting all the standards that exist. I don't go look up what they are or the certifications are. I just assume and I trust you that you are meeting that. Same thing goes with the laws and regulations. I'm assuming that you're lawful and that you're meeting all the regulations, and that the other thing is I believe that you understand all these things. So what I'm telling you is that when you're starting a business, or if you have a business and you haven't looked into these things and don't have a really good handle on them, then you've got holes and cracks in your customer loyalty process. Because if any one of these things all of a sudden comes to light, you can be dead. Theranos, if anybody knows who Theranos was, look them up. They were riding high as one of the best, fastest growing companies. And then all of a sudden people realized that all their tests were BS, that they weren't meeting the regulations, they didn't have the proper weren't meeting the standards, and a lot of people lost millions and millions of dollars on that company, but it went bankrupt and disappeared because it wasn't honest, it didn't have integrity, it didn't meet these things. And it could happen in a heartbeat to you. Uh-oh, went backwards. So I assume, like I said, everybody assumes you have all those things, and yet um, um, it's not easy to learn all those things, but the internet helps a lot. The next thing I think that really comes into play to have a loyalty and generate a loyalty program and generate loyal customers is what I call internal customer loyalty. Everybody in your company's got a customer. The lady who, and the administrative office person that greets people has customers. Those people that she greets, plus everybody else in the office that she has to interact with are her customers. And they all have to have a program to make sure their customers are loyal. And it starts with your employees. Having an internal customer loyalty plan starts with having employees that are happy, love their jobs, but it's a lot more than that. You want to hire the right people, and that's the people that are going to follow your program of loyalty, buy into your culture. They're going to be willing to be trained. They're going to be willing to learn processes and follow processes. You're going to have to train them so that they understand these processes. But employees are one of the top reasons customer loyalty cracks occur in companies. And it's not always the employee's fault. As I'm about to tell you, a lot of times it's the employer's fault. Most of the times it is. When I had my small business, low voltage electrical company, ran it for 10 years. I had an employee that my engineer, he was kind of a grumpy guy. He was one of the 3 people who were working for the company when I bought it. And I didn't understand how to engineer these low voltage electrical systems, security systems, and audio. So we needed him and we kept him, but he was a jerk. And he sat in his office, usually worked in a dark office with headphones on, but he was good at his job. Most employees didn't want to talk to him. Got to a point several years down the line that when people wanted to talk to him, they came to me and said, "Hey, I need this guy to do this. Can you go ask him to do it?" Which should have been a red flag, and it was a red flag, but we needed him. I kept telling myself, I need him. Well, flash forward, and we have the opportunity with one of our clients to win a $3 million project. I told you earlier that we grew this company to $3 million. So this one project would have equaled our largest annual revenue. And it was with an Indian tribe, and it was in a casino. We were helping them replace we did help them replace their security system with a digital CCTV system, and it tied into all their other security systems. And they were building a new casino, and they wanted to use the same equipment. And the equipment they put in that they upgraded with was a manufacturer from Germany who had a very small footprint in this country. We brought them into the state of Arizona and introduced them to the various tribes who are our customers. And so we were their rep here in Arizona. We bid this project with them, and we were the favored project. We were told we were going to be selected. They wanted to have a meeting with us. They wanted with the elder council, and they wanted to meet our engineer, lead installer, etc. So we went to this, and I knew this guy had the potential to be a problem, especially in the Indian culture. And they don't like being questioned. And when they do, you got to, do it in a very nice manner. And I warned him. I sat down and had a 30-minute discussion with him. And we get to the meeting, and of course, one of their tech people says something about the technology that was wrong. And he doesn't even raise his hand. He just dives in, tells the person that they're wrong, didn't do it in a very nice way. And Meeting got pretty tense, finished the meeting. I was not feeling really good about things. Got back to my office, had a long chat with this guy. I actually wanted to fire him that day, but I didn't. I fired him the next day when I got a call from the vendor and the client on the phone together saying that they weren't going to let my company, have this project, that the vendor, the manufacturer, had agreed to bring one of their other vendors who had installed a project in California for them, their only other project in this country, into the state to do this for the tribe. And we basically lost that contract, the tribe and the manufacturer, all because this guy opened his mouth. And I fired him that day, but I actually told him that I was more mad at myself because I should have fired him a long time ago. And employees can cost you, and you got to be careful. Another story I'm going to tell you just real quick. Another time, the city of Phoenix was one of our biggest clients, and there was a group within the city of Phoenix called Alarm Services, and they hired all the vendors to deal with all the security systems. So they were our customer. But when we were doing a project, and the one I'm going to tell you, we were doing at the Central Library downtown. And so we were at their customer's site. Our customer became the middleman, and we were working for their customer technically. And so we had a guy at the Central Library, and my partner gets a call saying from the person at the Central Library, not the alarm services, saying, get your tech off right now. I want him out of my library. And apparently he had been throwing boxes down off the ladder when he opened up boxes, and he was talking underneath his breath, making a lot of noise. And he was in the library out in the main area where there were people. And so we pulled him off, and I heard my partner yelling at him in his office. And so I called him over afterwards and, asked him, what's going on? And he told me that apparently he had gone in to pick up equipment in our warehouse that morning. And the kid who ran our warehouse, who was literally a kid, I think he was 18, had said something that just ticked him off. And he apologized. He said he let the kid get to him, and he was just grumpy, and he was thinking of quitting because of the kid. And, I told him, well, you still can't do that. But I thanked him for telling me that. But really what the issue was is that kid was my partner's son. And he said, so this thing had been going on for a long time. And it was like the straw that broke the camel's back that day, because he was afraid to bring it up, because he worked for my partner directly, and he was afraid to bring it up with his boss about his son. And then this happened. And we had to smooth it out with the city. We didn't lose any contract or anything like that. But I went in and I reamed my partner's son out, because I told him that I'll fire him if he ever did anything like that. I explained customer loyalty to him, and I explained that this tech was his customer, and that I expected him to treat this tech and all the techs and everybody in the company just like we treat our customers. So there's just two stories about why having the right employees in the right place is so important. The next thing I want to tell you about internal customer loyalty, and what I'm about to say is probably the crux of an end customer loyalty program at the heart of it. I call it repeatedly repeating repeatability. So what do I mean by that? Let's start with repeatability. You have to be able to give a customer a great experience every time they come in. But you don't know when they're going to come in. So you have to make sure that every single time your employees are performing whatever task or function it may be that is part of your offering to your customers, they do it the same way every single time. Once you figure out what excellent is and what customers really like, you want to make sure that they do it every single time. And so that's repeatability. But how do you get repeatability? It's by having processes, documented processes, training your employees on those processes, having employees that are willing to learn new things and change as you change the processes, having measurements in place so that you can measure the processes and the outcomes and make sure you're getting the outcomes that you expect. And then taking action based on those measurements and constantly looking to re-engineer things and improve things and make them better. So once you get to that level of great customer service to the point that customers are ecstatic about your product or service, that is repeatable and that you're constantly improving upon it. You should never get to a point where you're just happy. John F. Kennedy once said, the only thing unchangeable is change itself. That's true. And if you ever are complacent and in a static environment, you'll learn at some point pretty quickly that something needs to change. So repeatedly repeating repeatability. If you can do those things, and they're not easy, it's documenting the processes, making sure that they're good, going through them with employees, including employees in the process development process, so that they get buy-in to what the processes are. And again, developing training around those. I can't repeat enough how having those things or not having them, I'll say it the other way, means you do have cracks in your customer loyalty program. And it does mean at some point something bad's going to happen and you're going to have to deal with it. And it could cost you a lot of business, if not your entire business. Vendors are part of your internal customer loyalty program. Vendors can hurt you in a heartbeat. Last year for my wife's birthday, we went to Dog House. I don't know if any of you know what Dog House, it's a hot dog place here in the Valley. And we took some friends with us. And one reason we love Dog House, well, I'm not a big hot dog fan. The reason I love Dog House is because I think they have the best tater tots, bar none, in the entire world. And we had told our friends, we're going to take you to this place. It's got the best tater tots in the world. They're tater tot fans too. And we walk in and they were out of tater tots. And they told us that their vendor forgot to deliver them. Their vendor nailed them. Well, my wife, who's a hot dog fiend, was so angry. And my wife is, I already mentioned, is not someone you want to get angry. That she said, we're out of here. She didn't even want a hot dog. We went around the corner to a Mexican place. And she said, I'm never going back there again. Now, the other three of us talked her into going there recently, and we all had their tater tots, and she's back in love with the place. But it took the three of us intervening to get her to become loyal again. And we're not loyal because of their hot dogs, although they have great hot dogs. We're loyal because of their tater tots. But they have issues, and they could kill that loyalty if they aren't careful with their vendors. I don't know what they did with that vendor, but you know, that lost them a meal that night, and who knows what else it may have lost them that night. I once had won a contract for $1 million with the city of Phoenix, and my largest credit line with any of my suppliers was $50,000, and I needed to buy a whole lot of equipment. And I had a very good rapport with my vendors. I'll explain in a minute. But I went to one of the vendors and said, "Listen, I could split this up among a bunch of vendors, but that'll drive me crazy, and it doesn't do anybody any good. For this project, will you give me a credit line so that I can buy it all, the majority of it through you?" And they did it in the heartbeat. One, because it was the city of Phoenix and they knew city of Phoenix paid, but two, they trusted me. And why did they trust me? It's because they were one of my vendors from the very beginning. And when I first started, we had cash flow issues. And I wasn't always able to pay my bills. But one of the measurements I did was I kept very close track of where my invoices were, when I was going to get paid. and where my cash was going to come in, where my cash had to go. And if I knew that I was going to be late on an invoice, I proactively contacted that vendor way in advance, explained the situation, told them when I would get them paid, and then made sure I got them paid on that date. And if they had an issue with it, I fell over backwards to get them paid sooner. But having that rapport, and I went and took them out to lunch and had a great rapport with their accounts payable people, to the extent that I knew the accounts payable managers at most of my vendors. And so they often were willing to do things for me so that I didn't hurt my end customers. So vendors are just as important, and so are stakeholders. So stakeholders can be investors that have their own idea about stuff and want a return on their investment. They could be people like your bank that you have a loan from. For me, both of them ended up being issues for me throughout my life. One of the businesses that I owned, we set up some metrics that we sold last year. We set up some metrics for the owners and said, if you don't meet this one metric by this date, then we're going to take over the company 100% and sell it, because things aren't going as good as we'd hoped. Well, that happened, and we sold it. So we pulled that business out from underneath these owners and said, sorry, and it's done. My bank, during the Great Recession, went bankrupt. And the FDIC called our loan. And our loan had been sold to another bank, but they chose to not renew it. And so basically, the meeting I had with the bank was, oh, Mr. Bolnick, you need to sell your company and pay us off. And so I did. We sold the company. Not a great situation to sell a company. That's really when I got into consulting, is I decided, oh, there's a lot of stuff I could teach people. But stakeholders can make cracks in your customer loyalty program that could really hurt you. So I haven't even mentioned the product really. I did early on. And isn't that part of the customer loyalty? Well, it's what I call the icing on the cake, or the sprinkles on the cake. Whatever it is, it's what got them, like I said, to walk in the door. It's like, ooh, look at that icing. That looks really good. How many times have you cut into a cake because it had this pretty icing? Or for me, it's eating a cupcake because it looks so good, and the cake is terrible. Like, you hate mint and it's a mint cake, or you hate vanilla and it's a vanilla cake, or whatever, or there's too much flour or not enough flour, or whatever it may be. You spit it out and you're never going to eat that cake again. And wherever you got it, you're going to question whether you should ever go back to that place. Well, all the things that I've been talking about are the cake. Think of them as the cake, because the icing got them in the door, and now you got to prove to them that they should come back and buy this cake again. And so where does the loyalty come in? It's that cherry. Like I said at the beginning, the cherry is loyalty. And if you can generate loyal customers, they become evangelists. You heard how I was talking about Portillo's. I would never say anything negative about Portillo's. Now, if all of a sudden that changed, let's say I went in there and got food poisoning, whoops, that would change my view of Portillo's in a heartbeat. I got food poisoning at a place called Chevy's, my daughter, about 35 years ago, and bad food poisoning. Both my wife and I got it, and we never went back to Chevy's. To this day, I've never been back to one. So you got to be careful with loyalty. I'm going to tell you one more. I'll tell you two more stories. I got a little bit of time, and then I'll open it up for questions. There was a restaurant here called Fat Tuesdays. I think they're still around. I don't know, but we used to go there all the time when our kids were little, and they loved it. I forget. I think they gave either a muffin or a cookie or something, and so my kids loved it. But when there was a kick at one point, I think it was in early 2000s, to get rid of trans fats. and Fat Tuesdays just tossed them out and billed themselves in their advertisements as trans fat free. Well, whatever they did changed the taste of their food to the point where my kids hated it. And we stopped going. And like I said, I don't even know if they're still around, but I wouldn't know because I never went back. Now they made it, they survived the Great Recession, so they obviously had a good enough following, but that could have killed their company, right? I went to the same mechanic here in the Valley. I moved here in 1988 and went to a mechanic, Firestone dealer, Firestone place, and they were telling me I need a new air conditioner. And a friend of mine had a friend who had just started his own mechanic shop. And so I took it over to him and he was like, nah, they're wrong. You need this $80 part and it'll be fixed. And so I was like, okay. He was recommended to me and he just did me good. I'll go back to him. I went back to him, as I said, for actually almost 40 years and told everybody about him. When my parents were down here, they would go. When my mom moved down here, she went to the same place. And then one day my son took his van there and I do not know what happened or why it happened, but he let my son go. My son I asked him to look at the van and tell us everything that needed to be fixed because they were going to take it from here all the way to South Carolina and back. And it was an old van. Well, I don't know what happened, but got clean bill of health. He did fix some stuff up and it actually cost quite a bit of money. But my son's air conditioner broke down in the heat in North Carolina, and your transmission went to the point where they had to spend 3 days in South Carolina getting it fixed. And I asked him what happened, and he said, "Oh, he wasn't feeling good, and he was having some physical issues, health issues. But you can't hurt my son like that." And then he did something to me myself on a repair, and unfortunately, I'm not even telling you his name, but I I don't go there anymore, and I've been struggling to find a good mechanic ever since. But for the last 2.5 years, I've not gone to him, and so he took loyalty and threw it in the trash can with me, and I suspect he did that with other people because I know I heard he's closing. But so there's my customer loyalty hierarchy. It starts with trust and it really ends with trust because the trust got them in the door, like I said, but the trust at the top, the cherries trust, is trust that you're going to do it over and over again. You're going to give me that great experience I had time after time to the point that I'm willing to tell my friends, my best friends, my family about you because I trust that you're going to give them the same experience. So that's all I've got. And if there's questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
All right, excellent, Mitchell. Thank you. We do have a question in here. If anybody else has questions, please post them in the Q&A. The Q&A link is at the bottom of your screen. We have one. It's from an anonymous attendee. It says, "My company, with a head count of over 50, has had some rocky times before and during the pandemic. While we are recovering, one piece of feedback we are getting from former customers is that they are going with our competition because they don't know if we are still operating or they think we are on the way towards shutting our doors. How do we build trust with our customers that we will continue to be here for years?"
So that's, the pandemic created situations that are unique. Oh, I'm sorry. That was when I was supposed to stop talking. And if you were doing, I'm assuming whatever you were doing that kept these customers coming back before met a lot of what I just said. And they were loyal to you, but now they have questions because, if they need you, and you kind of hurt them when you had these problems during the pandemic, and perhaps some other vendors that met the same need didn't. That's what it sounds like. They were able to fulfill that need. So to me, you got to keep doing whatever you were doing that got them there in the first place. And to me, this sounds like an advertising thing. And I'm not a marketing guru by any means, but you need some kind of advertising blitz, or better yet, you as the owner probably need to get out and go talk to all these customers and have a good down to earth saying, I'm still doing the same things. I'm still going to provide you the same quality, but that face to face probably be a really good gesture of your loyalty to them, and certainly would be a positive thing. I hope that answered your question. It's not an easy question, honestly.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Again, if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A. We're happy to dig deeper.
I know what I gave you was a lot of motherhood and apple pie, but I can tell you, I've worked with so many companies that think they understand what I just told you and haven't implemented any of it and have major issues. Matter of fact, in the startup world, one of the things that's really tired me is the arrogance of the owners and the startup people. They think they know everything. And these are basics, but they skip them. And they skip them because they think the most important thing to do is get revenue in the door and get a customer. They don't think about getting that customer back again. And that's really the most important thing of any business, is getting that customer back, not the first time. So, I wish you all luck in your business, and read my books. There's one's at the bottom of this one, Mitch's Pocket Guide to a Great Business Plan. And it's the other one's Mitch's Framework to Business Development. They're really short. I made them so they fit in your back pocket, and they're easy to read because I know entrepreneurs don't have time to read books.
Okay, so we have a real good question that just popped in. It'll probably be our last one that says, it seems like in all your examples, the scenario is black and white. If you don't get exceptional service, you're out. In real life, you can't have guardrails for every customer in every situation. How do you attack loyalty in the gray?
Well, no, I used stark examples. You're right. But the reality of it is you should have a process that what do you do if a customer comes complain? And everybody should understand what that process is and should be trained on that process. And it should include getting to the bottom of what that customer's complaint is, admitting that there was an issue, owning up to it if there was, and showing that customer you're willing to make a change because they had that issue. So you're right. It's tiny things that could break the customer loyalty. And honestly, it typically is. Could be you just talked to me wrong and I didn't appreciate it. With the Indian tribes, it was the way you talk to them. We actually had somebody come in and talk to us about Indian culture, to our whole staff, to make sure everybody understood that, we're on their land now, we're working in their environment, they're our customer. There's differences than just working with, people outside of the tribes. We need to buy into this stuff. And if we didn't, and we had somebody who didn't buy into it, we knew that was going to cause a problem. So, you can process yourself to death, but the truth of the matter is that's the answer. And you got to develop them. You start off rudimentary with rudimentary processes, and you constantly develop them. You probably don't know what ISO is, but all manufacturers have to get what's called ISO, International Standards Organization, certified. And it makes you document every procedure in your company. It makes you measure every procedure in your company, and it makes you take corrective action. And large companies are doing what I just said. Now they have the resources. And as a small company, you got to figure out a way to do what I said on the resources you have.
Excellent. Thank you, Mitchell. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. That was a great presentation today. We appreciate you being with us. We want to thank all of our attendees for being with us today and sharing your input and participating with us. So it's been a good webinar for this Tuesday. We want to invite everybody or remind everybody that next Tuesday we will not have our boot camp because of the holiday, but we will pick back up in 2 weeks. So we hope to see you then. In the meantime, everybody have a great week and a great Labor Day weekend, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I love doing this.